Welcome to Insight Avenue. Let's slow down, because this episode isn't comfortable, but it is necessary. If you've ever been lied to, emotionally misled, or left confused after trusting the wrong person, stay with me. Most people don't ignore red flags because they're weak. They ignore them because they want to believe the words more than the truth. We're taught how to talk, how to explain, how to sound confident. But no one teaches us how to notice what happens before the words. The hesitation, the forced smile, the body pulling away while the voice stays polite. Today is about learning to see clearly, so you stop blaming yourself for not knowing what no one ever taught you. As you listen, your English will improve naturally through real emotions and real moments. So answer this honestly in the comments. What sign did you ignore that later broke your trust? Tell me in the comments. And now let's begin. There is one part of the human body that reacts before thinking, before planning, and before pretending. It doesn't wait for logic or permission from the brain. It responds the moment emotion arrives. That part is the eyes. People can prepare their words carefully. They can adjust their tone, control their voice, and even practice smiling in front of a mirror. With enough effort, most people can sound confident, calm, or convincing. But the eyes don't follow rehearsals. They move with feeling, not intention, and that's what makes them so honest. When someone feels love, their gaze softens without effort. When they feel joy, there's a quiet brightness that appears naturally. Fear widens the eyes before the person can explain it, and guilt often pulls the gaze away. Deep sadness does something even more noticeable. It slowly dims the eyes, as if the light inside them is being covered. Most of us have seen these changes many times in our lives. We just weren't taught to trust what we saw. Imagine asking someone a simple question. Are you okay? They answer quickly, yeah, I'm fine. On the surface, everything sounds right. The words arrive on time, and the smile appears when it's expected. But something else happens at the same moment. Their eyes don't stay with you the way they used to. The blinking slows. The gaze doesn't quite land. And for a brief second, so short it's easy to miss, you feel a weight pass through them. That moment matters more than the sentence they gave you. Pain often hides behind politeness, and if you train yourself to listen only to words, you'll miss that truth again and again. But when you learn to observe the eyes, you begin to understand what someone is carrying long before they're ready to say it out loud. The opposite experience can be just as revealing. Sometimes you meet someone who doesn't speak much at all. They don't try to impress you or fill the silence. Yet when they look at you, their gaze is steady, warm, and unhurried. It doesn't wander around the room. It doesn't rush away. It stays. That kind of eye contact feels calm, not intense, safe, not dramatic. And without realizing it, you relax around them. That is presence. That is respect. And it cannot be practiced. When it comes to dishonesty, the eyes usually fall into one of two patterns. Some people avoid eye contact because they feel guilt or discomfort. Their gaze drifts, their blinking increases, and their eyes search for escape. Others do the opposite. They stare too hard, forcing eye contact because they've learned that honesty is supposed to look confident. But forced eye contact never feels peaceful. It feels heavy, tense, and unnatural. Real honesty doesn't try to convince you. It doesn't rush or perform. It simply exists. The eyes are not just tools for seeing others. They are mirrors that reflect what the heart is holding: fear, attraction, hope, regret, or distance. That's why holding eye contact with someone you love can feel overwhelming, almost exposing. And that's why looking into the eyes of someone who once loved you, but no longer does, can be deeply painful. You can feel the space where warmth used to live. So from now on, try observing differently. When someone speaks, don't rush to prepare your response. Stay with them. Watch when their eyes soften, when they freeze, when they fall away, and when they no longer land on you at all. Because the truth rarely announces itself loudly. Most of the time, it appears as a small flicker that lasts less than a second, but honest enough to change how you see everything. And once you learn to notice that, clarity no longer needs to be chased. It will already be looking back at you. After the eyes, there is another place where emotion leaks through, even when someone is trying to stay in control. It's not what they say, it's how they say it. Most people focus only on words. They ask questions and listen for answers, believing the sentence itself carries the truth. But the human voice has layers beneath the sentence, and those layers often speak much louder. Psychologists call this paralanguage, the emotional sound behind the words. Paralanguage lives in tone, pitch, speed, volume, pauses, and even breath. And the reason it matters is simple. When the voice doesn't match the message, something is being hidden. Think about how many times you've heard someone say, "I'm fine," but the voice sounded flat, quiet, or tired. The words said one thing, but the tone said another. That wasn't fine. That was pain trying not to be noticed. Or consider when someone says, "I don't care," very quickly, with a sharp edge and a higher pitch than usual. If they truly didn't care, there would be calm. The speed and tension reveal the opposite. Strong emotion is already present, and the voice gives it away. This happens because emotion affects the body before logic has time to organize itself. Stress tightens the throat. Fear shortens the breath. Anxiety raises pitch and speeds up speech. Sadness softens volume and slows everything down. These changes are automatic. People can rehearse their sentences, but they can't fully control how emotion moves through their voice. Pauses are especially revealing. When someone answers immediately, the response often comes from truth or comfort. But when there's a small delay, a brief pause before a simple answer, it can signal internal filtering. In that moment, the brain isn't remembering. It's deciding what sounds safest to say. This doesn't always mean someone is lying. Sometimes it means they're afraid of being judged. Sometimes they're protecting someone else. Sometimes they're not ready to be honest yet. But in every case, the pause tells you one thing clearly. The answer didn't flow naturally. Volume also matters. Denials that come out too softly can signal uncertainty. Statements that are unusually loud can hide insecurity. Even a quiet sigh at the end of a sentence can change its meaning completely. "I'm okay," followed by a breath that sounds heavy, is not reassurance. It's a signal. When you train your ear to notice these patterns, you stop being fooled by confident words. You begin to hear sadness behind smiles, jealousy inside jokes, and care hidden behind silence. You start listening to the emotional soundtrack instead of just the lyrics. Your job isn't to interrogate or accuse, it's to notice. When the voice and the words don't align, trust the mismatch. Because the voice doesn't speak from logic, it speaks from feeling. And once you learn to hear that, conversations become clearer, not louder. Once you begin listening beyond words and tone, the next layer of truth appears in the body itself. The body doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It reacts. And one of the clearest reactions it shows is protection. Crossed arms and crossed legs are often misunderstood as simple habits or comfortable positions. But in many emotional situations, they carry a deeper message. They are the body's way of creating distance, a quiet signal that says, "I don't feel completely safe here," or "I'm not ready to open up." When someone crosses their arms tightly across their chest, the body is guarding its most vulnerable area. This often happens when a person feels defensive, uncomfortable, or emotionally threatened. They might still smile. They might still say, "It's fine," but their posture has already stepped back from the conversation. Legs communicate distance in a similar way. When someone crosses their legs away from you or angles their knees and feet in the opposite direction, it often reflects emotional disconnection. The body is turning away even while the conversation continues. On the other hand, crossed legs that face toward you can suggest comfort or interest, depending on the situation. Context always matters. Sometimes crossed arms are mistaken for confidence. A person might stand tall, chin up, arms folded, appearing powerful and controlled. But very often, this posture is not strength. It is fear wearing armor. It's the body trying to stay in control because something inside feels uncertain. What matters most is change. If someone was open and relaxed, then suddenly crosses their arms or pulls their body back during a specific topic, that shift is meaningful. The body is responding to something it doesn't want to face or doesn't feel safe addressing. Imagine you're talking about something emotional, something real. As the conversation deepens, you notice their shoulders tighten, their arms cross, and their posture lean away. Their words may say, "I understand," but their body has already closed the door. This is not a moment to push harder. It's a moment to observe. Ask yourself quietly, what are they protecting right now? The body doesn't build walls without a reason. It does so to guard emotions, boundaries, or unresolved feelings. When you learn to notice these walls, you stop forcing conversations that aren't ready to happen. And that awareness changes everything. Because understanding someone isn't about breaking their defenses. It's about recognizing when they need them. After body posture, there is something even quieter that often reveals more than words or movement. It's not what someone says, and it's not how they sit. It's the tiny space between a question and an answer. Most people don't notice it. The pause is too short to feel dramatic. It's not silence, not confusion, not avoidance. It's just a brief moment, sometimes no longer than a breath, before the response arrives. But inside that moment, something important is happening. When a person speaks from truth, their answer usually flows. The words arrive naturally, without effort. There is no need to search, adjust, or protect. But when someone pauses before answering a simple question, the mind is often doing something else. It's not remembering, it's choosing. That pause is the sound of internal calculation. What should I say right now? What sounds safest? What version will cause the least trouble? This doesn't automatically mean someone is lying. Sometimes the pause comes from fear. Fear of being judged, misunderstood, or hurting someone else. Sometimes it comes from uncertainty, or from emotions the person hasn't fully accepted yet. But in every case, the pause tells you the same thing. The response didn't come straight from the heart. Think about how often this happens in everyday life. You ask, "Where were you last night?" And the answer comes after a brief delay. Or you ask, "Do you really want to come with us?" And there's a tiny hesitation before the enthusiastic yes. Most people hear the words and move on. But the pause has already whispered something different. The mind uses that moment to edit. And editing means the truth needed help. What makes the micropause so powerful is how easy it is to miss. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't interrupt the conversation. It simply passes, and takes the truth with it if you're not watching closely. When you begin noticing these pauses, you stop being surprised later. You start understanding people earlier, before disappointment grows, before confusion turns into self-doubt. You realize that the most honest information often appears before the sentence, not inside it. So the next time you ask a question, don't rush to fill the space. Let the pause exist. Notice it. Respect it. Because that small moment between question and answer is often where the real story lives. Quiet, undecided, and waiting to be seen. By now, you've noticed a pattern. The more a part of the body is trained to perform, the less reliable it becomes. Faces learn to smile. Voices learn to sound calm. Posture learns to look confident. But there is one part of the body that almost no one ever trains, and because of that, it remains honest. The feet. We spend our lives watching faces, trying to decode expressions and reactions. But the face is the most controlled part of the body. From childhood, we're taught to manage it. Smile when it's polite. Stay neutral when you're angry. Don't show too much. Over time, the face becomes skilled at hiding. The feet never do. The feet point where the mind and attention want to go. When someone is engaged, interested, and emotionally present, their feet naturally face the person they're with. Their body stays aligned. There's no tension, no constant shifting, no quiet preparation to leave. Their whole stance says, "I'm here." But when someone feels bored, uncomfortable, disconnected, or ready to escape, the feet tell a different story. They angle toward the door. They point toward someone else. They shuffle, tap, or shift as if the body is waiting for permission to move on. The conversation may continue, but emotionally, they've already stepped away. You can see this clearly in group settings. Someone nods, laughs, and says the right things, yet their feet remain turned toward the exit or toward another person across the room. Their face stays polite, but their body has already chosen a different direction. This signal appears in relationships as well. A person may say, "I'm listening," while sitting back with their feet pointed away, legs tense, toes aimed toward the edge of the room. The words suggest presence. The body suggests distance. And what you feel in that moment, that sense of being unheard, is not imagination. It's alignment you're noticing. The opposite is just as powerful. When someone is truly with you, they lean in naturally. Their feet stay relaxed and directed toward you. They don't fidget or prepare an exit. You feel grounded around them because their body isn't split between staying and leaving. The mistake most people make is trusting politeness over direction. They believe the smile and ignore the stance. They listen to the sentence and miss the movement. And later, they wonder why the connection never felt real. So from now on, look lower, not to judge, but to understand. Ask yourself quietly, where are they pointing? Because words go where the brain decides, but feet move where the truth is already pulling. And when the two don't match, always trust the direction. Did this happen to you too? When someone said the right words, but their body was already walking away? As you continue learning to read the body, you'll begin to notice signals that are easy to overlook because they seem so small. One of the most revealing of these signals is a simple, almost invisible movement. A hand reaching toward the neck. It might look harmless. A brief touch to the side of the neck. Fingers brushing the back of it. Someone adjusting their collar, hoodie, or necklace. Most people see this as a habit, a meaningless gesture. But psychologically, it's one of the body's oldest protection responses. The neck is a vulnerable place. It holds the throat, the voice, the breath, and the pulse. When a person feels exposed, emotionally or mentally, the body reacts by protecting this area. The hand moves without instruction, offering comfort, calm, and reassurance. It's the body saying, "Slow down, breathe, stay safe." This movement often appears when someone feels nervous, uncertain, judged, or internally conflicted. It can show up when a person is hiding something, avoiding the full truth, or struggling to stay composed. What makes it so reliable is that it happens without awareness. People rarely know they're doing it, which means it isn't performance. It's an emotional leak. You'll notice this gesture during difficult conversations, moments of confrontation, or when sensitive topics arise. A person might speak calmly, insist that everything is fine, or downplay the importance of what's being discussed. But as they talk, their hand moves to the neck, rubs lightly, or fidgets with something nearby. Their words are steady, but their body is asking for relief. The signal doesn't always point to guilt. Sometimes it reflects fear of being misunderstood. Sometimes it comes from emotional exposure, from feeling seen too clearly. But in every case, it tells you the same thing. Something inside them feels unsafe. The key is not to confront or accuse. When you notice this sign, the most powerful response is patience. Lower your pressure. Slow the conversation. Create space instead of demanding answers. When people feel safer, honesty has room to surface. So start paying attention to the neck, not to control the situation, but to understand it. Because when the body moves to protect the voice, it's quietly telling you that something real is happening inside, whether the words are ready to admit it or not. As you become more aware of body language, you'll start noticing something subtle that often happens when two people truly connect. It's not dramatic. It's not planned. But once you see it, you'll feel it immediately. Their body begins to match yours. You lean back, and a moment later, they do the same. You rest your hand on the table, and soon their hand follows a similar position. You cross your legs, adjust your posture, or shift your weight, and without realizing it, they mirror the movement. This is not coincidence. It's called mirroring, and it's one of the clearest signs of emotional alignment. Mirroring happens when people feel safe, interested, or emotionally connected. The mind recognizes familiarity and comfort, and the body responds by syncing. It's a quiet way of saying, "I'm with you," without needing to say anything at all. This behavior is almost always unconscious. People don't decide to mirror. They don't plan it. It happens naturally when there is trust, respect, attraction, or shared understanding. That's why it appears so often between close friends, romantic partners, parents and children, or even strangers who feel an instant sense of ease with each other. You'll also notice mirroring in professional settings. In interviews or important conversations, when someone begins to match your tone, pace, or posture, it often means you're making a positive impression. They are meeting your energy, not resisting it. But mirroring also reveals its absence. When you're open and expressive, yet the other person stays rigid, unmoved, or emotionally distant, the message is clear. If your posture softens and theirs becomes sharper, if you lean in and they lean away, the connection is not being shared. The body is declining the invitation, even if the words remain polite. This can be painful to notice, especially in relationships where you hope for closeness. But it is also freeing. Because once you see the lack of mirroring, you stop guessing. You stop chasing alignment that isn't there. Mirroring is not about copying behavior. It's about shared emotional space. When two people are on the same wavelength, their bodies naturally fall into rhythm. And when that rhythm is missing, no amount of words can replace it. So pay attention to the match. Notice the alignment. Because when connection is real, the body will always find a way to show it. After all the signals you've learned to notice, the eyes, the voice, the body, there is one final language that many people are afraid of: silence. Most people treat silence as something awkward, something to escape from. When the words stop, they rush to fill the space. They explain, soften, change the topic, or say, "It's okay, forget it." But silence is not a gap, it's a container, and it often holds more truth than speech ever could. Let me show you what I mean. You ask them a question. Not a casual one about the weather or the time, but a question that matters. One that feels heavy because so much depends on the answer. For a moment, everything feels smaller. You watch their eyes. They don't meet yours. Instead, they drop to the floor. They don't answer. 1 second passes, then another. The silence grows thick. You can hear your own heartbeat. Your body is tense, waiting, hoping. They still say nothing. And in that quiet space between you, something shifts. You don't know the full truth yet, but you feel that something important has already been revealed. That silence stays in the air. Now pause with that moment, because what you just witnessed was not emptiness. It was emotion with no safe exit yet. Inside that silence can live fear, regret, love, guilt, disappointment, or the realization of a truth they are not ready to say out loud. When someone is silent after an important question, the mind is not resting, it's working hard. There is often an internal conflict happening between what they feel and what they are willing to reveal. The silence is the battlefield. Think about how often this happens in relationships. One person asks, "Do you still feel the same about me?" The other doesn't say no. They don't say yes. They hesitate, look away, breathe slowly, and stay quiet. That silence already answered the question. Not with words, but with honesty. Silence can also appear as protection. A child stays quiet after breaking something. A friend avoids responding to a topic they're ashamed of. A parent pauses because they're holding back tears. In each case, the silence is speaking clearly, if someone is patient enough to listen. The mistake most people make is interrupting this moment. They rush past it because it feels uncomfortable. But when you allow silence to exist, you give truth space to surface on its own terms. The most powerful response to silence is not pressure. It's presence, holding the moment, staying calm, and gently asking, "Is there something you're not ready to say yet?" That question doesn't force honesty, it invites it. When you learn to respect silence instead of fearing it, you stop missing what matters most. You begin to hear what people cannot say yet, but desperately want someone to notice. And sometimes, that quiet understanding changes everything. If there's one thing to remember from this episode, it's this: the truth was never hidden from you. It was just speaking in a language no one taught you to understand. The eyes, the voice, the body, the pauses, the silence. None of them were trying to confuse you. They were quietly telling the story the words couldn't carry. And once you learn to notice that story, something changes inside you. You stop doubting your instincts. You stop chasing explanations. You stop blaming yourself for not seeing sooner. Reading people is not about suspicion. It's about clarity, and clarity brings peace. Some truths will still hurt. Some realizations will still disappoint, but they will no longer trap you in confusion. Because when you can see clearly, you don't beg for honesty. You recognize it, and when honesty is gone, you don't chase it. You let it go. This is how you protect your heart. This is how you grow. And this is how you walk forward. Aware, grounded, and free. Thank you for listening. We're just getting started.